A system becomes absolute when no truth can remain outside its order. Every cause must belong somewhere, and every apparent contradiction must be resolved, qualified, or traced to error. In medieval Christian thought, this demand was applied not only to argument, but to reality. Creation was understood as intelligible because its source was neither divided nor mistaken. Yet perfect order did not remove difficulty. It made difficulty more exact. This is before logic, a history of rules before they were written. Divine knowledge had to coexist with human freedom, and divine power had to remain unlimited without making contradiction meaningful. Revelation and philosophy had to remain distinct without becoming incompatible. The stronger the unity of truth became, the more carefully its relations had to be defined. Divine logic is a modern analytical phrase, not the name of a single medieval doctrine. Christian thinkers differed across centuries and traditions. They disagreed about grace, freedom, causation, and the reach of natural reason. What many shared was the conviction that truth could not finally oppose truth. When argument appeared to conflict with revelation, the conflict demanded examination. A premise might be false, a term unstable, a text insufficiently contextualized, or two levels of explanation confused. Reasoning did not disappear beneath faith. It acquired a stricter responsibility. This framework joined Christian doctrines of creation with late ancient accounts of intelligible order and Greek logic. In the Latin West, Boethius helped transmit parts of Aristotle's logical works. Logic tested conclusions, definitions, and contradictions. An intelligible creation allowed layered explanation. A natural event could have an immediate cause while remaining dependent upon divine causation. Scripture carried authority while requiring interpretation through language and context. Human law could govern while being judged against a higher moral order. These levels were distinct, and their relation had to be argued. Omnipotence exposed the precision required. If divine power meant that any arrangement of words could become true, contradiction itself would count as possible. A thing could exist and not exist in one respect. Scholastic thinkers generally rejected that conclusion. A contradiction did not describe an action too difficult to perform. It failed to describe a coherent action. This was not usually presented as placing an external law above God. It distinguished genuine possibility from language that identified no possible state of affairs. Divine knowledge created another difficulty. If every event is known without error, future human actions can appear fixed in advance. If they are necessary, responsibility appears threatened. Boethius distinguished divine eternity from temporal prediction. Divine knowledge was not described as an earlier observation, waiting for a later event, but as knowledge not divided by temporal succession. Other thinkers developed different accounts of providence, grace, and free choice. The dispute required distinctions among necessity, knowledge, and voluntary action. Language imposed a further limit. Terms applied to finite things could not always be transferred to God without qualification. Words such as good, wise, or knowing were not assumed to function identically at every level. Medieval theories of analogy preserved meaningful speech without reducing divine attributes to ordinary human properties. Literal sameness risked distortion. Complete ambiguity emptied theological language of stable meaning. From the 12th century onward, The wider recovery of Aristotle's works intensified these demands. Natural philosophy supplied accounts of motion, causation, substance, and change. These texts entered schools and universities shaped by Christian doctrine. Their reception was not a simple conflict between faith and reason. It involved translation, commentary, criticism, revision, restriction, and adoption. The problem was to determine what reason could establish, what depended upon revelation, and whether conflict arose from proof, interpretation, or concepts transferred between domains. Thomas Aquinas produced one influential arrangement by distinguishing eternal, natural, human, and divine law. Each addressed a different level of order, yet each remained related to divine governance. Difference was preserved without dissolving unity. This structure gave logic an institutional function. When philosophy, doctrine, law, and authoritative texts appeared to conflict, assertion alone was insufficient. Terms had to be defined. Objections had to be stated accurately. Authorities had to be distinguished by scope. Conclusions had to follow from examined premises. The commitment to one truth created a procedural demand. Disagreement had to be processed without allowing the order to fragment. Logic, therefore, became more than a method for recognizing valid inference. It became part of the architecture through which theology, law, education, and interpretation maintained coherence. Its role was not to replace belief, but to regulate relations among claims made within an already meaningful world. An apparent contradiction could be reassigned to language, context, causation, or necessity. Difference could remain, but it could not remain unclassified. The system was never complete, and medieval Christianity did not speak with one voice. Freedom, foreknowledge, grace, evil, and religious language remained contested. These disputes prevent the period from being reduced to uniformity or to a struggle between reason and faith. The historical record instead shows sustained argument within a commitment to intelligibility. Order was treated as real, while human access to it remained partial. Absolute order did not eliminate uncertainty. It determined the forms uncertainty could take. A contradiction became a problem of premises, meanings, levels, or interpretation. A disagreement became a sequence of distinctions, objections, and replies. Recognized authorities remained central, but their relations required reasons and procedures. Once truth was assumed to possess unity, the management of difference became a logical task. In the next episode, we will examine the scholastic method, deduction as structured authority.